Thank you for joining us this afternoon. And we are approaching 200 of you from all over the world. Thank you for joining us. And as you can see in the chat, you can let us know where you're joining us from. Just type your city name. That should be enough. Your city name in the chat as well. So we are just 20 shy of 200 joining us today. Okay. So good morning to those of you in Washington, D.C. Good afternoon to those of you in my side of the world. I'm in Accra, Ghana. And good evening to those of you joining us from Asia. That's India, Pakistan, Nepal, etc., etc. The fact that I could greet in 3 different time zones tells us what a wide spread of participants we have today. So today's session, we have George Washington University School of Business. Our topic for today is managing information technology projects using Scrum. Managing information technology projects using Scrum. As you've all been aware, or as you all may have encountered or may have heard Scrum before, this allows us to cover the concepts and benefits of project management using the Scrum principles as well as the Scrum framework of project management as well. Our speaker will also touch on some other methodologies, such as the traditional waterfall or traditional project management methodology, and compare it to Scrum, so you can be able to, on your own, differentiate between what the benefits of Scrum are as compared to other project management methodologies as well. We have some of you joining us from Kumasi as well. Hello to those of you from Kumasi. As well, I've seen quite a few of you. Nana Ifia from Kumasi. I've seen Marvelous from Lagos, Nigeria. Hello, Marvelous. Quite a few of you as well. I've seen Aditya from India. I've seen Abhipspa from India as well. I've seen Palak from Mumbai. Hello, Palak from Mumbai. Thanks for joining us as well, Palak from Mumbai. And I've seen Manisha from Delhi. Hello, Manisha. I've seen Anika also from Delhi. I've seen Collins from Sunyani in Ghana. Hi, Collins from Sunyani in Ghana. Thanks for joining us. Yes, I've seen Suyash from Mumbai, and I've also seen Siddhi, also Priyanka from Hyderabad. Hi, Priyanka. How are you? Thanks for joining us from Hyderabad. And I've seen Bala from Bengaluru. Welcome. Farina also from Andhra. I've also seen Anjali from Nashik. Anjali, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us as well. So to proceed, we now have a little over 250 of you joining us from multiple cities across 3 continents. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, let me introduce who our speaker for today is. We have 2 speakers joining us from the George Washington University School of Business. We first have Professor Andrew Wadha. Now, Professor Andrew Wadha is a visiting professor of information systems and technology management at the George Washington University School of Business in Washington, D.C. She is also an enterprise information systems strategist and systems development manager. Professor Andrew, or Prof. Andrew, as we'll call her today, offers extensive experience in guiding, planning, development, and global delivery of business-critical technology initiatives within highly regulated organizations. She's also passionate about leveraging leading-edge technology to improve services, eliminate administrative burden, and position organizations for greater success. So Professor Andrew will handle our main subject matter for today, which is the Scrum project management. We've also been joined by Megan Van Son from the George Washington School of Business. Hello, Megan.
Hi, hello.
So Megan is also Associate Director for the Graduate Business Admissions at the George Washington University School of Business. So you hear a bit more from Megan later about the George Washington School of Business and what opportunities they present to you as well. For me, my name is Jojo Kwansa. I introduced myself last. I am Regional Director at Seed Global Education. Some of you may have encountered Seed recently, but Seed is a global higher education strategy company, and we facilitate interactions like this between top universities like George Washington University and potential students like you joining us today as well. So before I hand over to Prof. Andrew, there's a small poll that I want you to complete that will give Prof. Andrew an idea of where members of this audience stand as far as Scrum is concerned, and what their foundational knowledge of Scrum is concerned. So you see this on your screen. You can complete it. It says, what are the 3 main Scrum rules? So you have just one choice, and I'm giving you up to 40 seconds to make your choice before we hand over to Prof. Andrew to get us going. And I still see a few of you joining as well. Swa from Mumbai. Hello, Swa from Mumbai. Thanks for joining us. And I see Benjamin from Accra, Ghana. Good afternoon, Benjamin. Jeffrey from Kumasi. Pradesh from India. Thanks for joining us. Williams from Kumasi. And I see Anwisha from Kolkata. Hello, Anwisha. Viru from Bangalore. Hello, Viru. How are you? Hope you're having a good evening, and hope you had a good day as well, Viru. So kindly complete the poll before we get going as well. I've completed it myself. I just did as well. Hello, Mohammed Barai from Kumasi, Ghana. Sadak from Mumbai as well. I see you. Thanks for joining us. And Benjamin, you're joining us from the Ghana Communications Technology University. Thanks for joining us as well. I believe you interacted with GW recently on your campus. I was there as well. Thanks for joining us. So we are bringing this poll to a close, yes. And as you can see on your screen, you can all see the answers. So 43 of you chose option B, which is the product owner, the development, the Scrum Master, the product owner, and the development team members. 1/3 of you chose Scrum owner, product master, and development team members, and 1/4 of you chose Scrum Master, product team members, and the development team owner. Because I'm not the expert and Prof. Andrew is, I'll hand these over to Prof. Andrew for her opinion and to take us for this afternoon session. Over to
We will
Prof.
talk
Andrew.
about it in a second. Should I go ahead and
Yes.
share my screen now?
Yes, go ahead and share your screen now.
All right, give me a second here. All right, so everyone probably sees a nice calm beach, but I am going to change that in a second. And can everyone see my first? Okay, hold on. All righty. So first of all, just a very warm welcome. My head reels as I'm thinking and hearing of all these cities all over the world while I'm sitting here in warm, sunny Washington, D.C. But it also takes me back a few years when I was working in the corporate sector for a telecom company. And we were in 175 cities all over the world. I had my staff, developers, project managers in in many different parts. I had teams in 6 different cities in the world, including India, Philippines, Paris, London, Belgium. So very exciting times. It just excites me, all this vitality and energy is fantastic. So before I start, I want to tell you why I'm showing this. This is a small story about me before we start with anything else. So like Joe just said, I'm a visiting professor of IS at the School of Business at GW, and very much like you, I was poised to come to this country in the summer of 1992, on a student visa. And my best friend had left already for Texas. And at that time, little did I know that once I came here, I would never go back, except for holidays once a year. I went on to work for Time Warner in New York for a few years in the television industry. And then I went back to school for a master's at GW, the School of Business here. And then I worked in the telecom sector for many years. I was the global head of software development. The company was based in Hong Kong, but I was here in the US, and I had people in many different parts of the world. And where I live now is in Virginia, which is the place where we live at, is about 30 miles northwest of Washington, D.C. And it looks pretty much like what you see. This picture is actually a picture taken from my community on one of my runs or walks. I took this picture. So I am a believer in electric vehicles. I used to run till about a year ago for an hour a day. I've been teaching now with GW for about 4 years. And students like you keep my life exciting, as I said earlier. All right, so let's find out more about what I'm going to talk about, right? So intersection of Agile, project management, Scrum. So if you search online, you'll find some statistics that will say that Agile and Scrum are being used as much as traditional project management is being used in companies. So I can't substantiate this with actual numbers, but I can tell you from my experience from dealing with professionals, from dealing with students that work in companies all over, that, it's almost 50-50. So half of the companies use some form of Agile, and, the other half are still using predictive project management. So we're going to talk about the Agile framework, values, background, things like that. I'll tell you a little about my experiences. So when I first started working for the telecom company, we were completely using waterfall or predictive software development. And we continued to do it for a few years. So we had separate teams for analysts, developers, people who were developing software. And we struggled with deploying software. There were lots of defects. People were working overtime. Then about 10 years ago, we started using a hybrid approach using Scrum as well as predictive project management. And eventually we adopted what's called SAFe. But it's impossible to talk about Scrum without comparing it to traditional project management. So from time to time, you'll hear me draw parallels. And the reason this comparison is inevitable is because it makes it easier to understand why the change was needed from what we were doing in predictive project management to Scrum. So I just wanted to get, sort of gauge the temperature. If you can, it's not a poll as such. You can maybe say in chat if you're doing any of these things, people who are working in project management, people who are software developers, if you're using Scrum or if you're using predictive project management. You can type your answers in chat. So talking about, let's just start and talk about predictive project management because that came first, right? You'll hear some books and articles talk about how when the pyramids were built, they must have used some kind of project management, or when Taj Mahal was built, they must have used some kind of project management, because how is it that they were able to put that many such a large group of people to do different things and then produce the kind of stuff that we see, right? So traditional project software development methods include the division of work into phases. You see some of these phases on your screen. And so one phase begins, and until it ends, the next one doesn't begin. So typical phases are, analysis. So that's when you do your requirements, and then you design the system, then you code, test, and finally go live. So it's fairly similar to what you see on your screen, right? So it's like a waterfall. One ends and the other one begins. So this is a very sequential, linear process. And the most popular version of it is the systems development life cycle. And, like I said, when one of the stages is complete, the development moves on to the next stage. And the team can just go back to the previous stage without finishing the stage you're at, right? So it's like a waterfall. So this waterfall model originated in manufacturing and construction industries, both highly structured environments. As you can imagine, changes could be very expensive, and sometimes they would be impossible. Of course, predictive waterfall project management works well if the problem that you are applying to is well defined, if it's predictable, and unlike the changes are unlikely. However, if any of you work in software development, you will know that product development or software development is rarely predictable. In came Agile, partly because of this, right? It was a reaction to how things were with predictive project management. And the concept of Scrum is rooted in Agile. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the basics of Agile. So if you think of the word Agile, right, probably one of the terms that comes to mind when you think of the word Agile is supple and nimble. And that's exactly what it is, right? So what does Agile have to do with business and IT, right? Let's understand what Agile is as a mindset, right? And I'm wondering if you're confused when I say Agile is a mindset, right? What's a mindset? So Agile is not a methodology, nor is it a framework, not even a set of techniques, not even practices. It's basically a philosophy with values and principles. So essentially, a mindset is a culture that you implement with the incentive to accept or adopt the cultural norms. If you want to truly implement Agile, it has to become a part of the company's culture. Jojo, I just want to ask quickly, because I can't see, I'm a little confused by looking at my screen. You do see my slides, right?
Yes, I do see your slides. Yes, I do.
All right. So little more explanation, right? Let me try to explain this whole mindset thingy with this pyramid. So at the very top of the pyramid sit the Agile practices. And Agile can be practiced in various ways. And some of those practices you may be familiar with, things like Kanban, extreme programming, Scrum, Lean. I'll cover Scrum, of course. So all these practices answer the what of Agile. What comprises Agile? What do you do to implement Agile? What kinds of tools or processes you use? Below the what, you will see the why. Why are we implementing it? What are the principles and values of Agile? These principles and values basically form the foundation of Agile. So there is something called the 12 principles of Agile. You can Google it anytime. So two things that you can look at: the 12 principles of Agile and the Agile manifesto. With Agile, there isn't a whole lot that you can read. There isn't a lot of documentation because it's simple. It's the mastering of it that becomes hard. So the Agile Manifesto, like I mentioned, is just 4 simple statements. You see those simple statements on your screen. But these statements are the embodiment of the values and foundations on which Agile is built. So by looking at this, what we are saying is, while there is value in the items on the right, Agile values the items on the left more. So, there are some indicators that teams have an Agile mindset. They look at failure as an opportunity, for example. One of the concepts of Agile is that as your working product evolves, or your working product evolves as time goes on, right? Teams welcome different perspectives and diversity of thought. Teams are made up of cross-functional skills. If they were all coders, if you think about it, if an IT team consisted all of coders, who would do the testing? Who would do the analysis? Who would do the project management, right? So you have to have people with cross-functional skills. People should be having fun. Of course, the definition of fun can be subjective, but energy is high, people are motivated. The work pace is sustainable. There are tools that are used in Agile and Scrum, like the burn down chart that we will talk about, which is a great way to see if the pace you've set for the team is right or not. One big thing in Agile is that team members can accept change and they can adapt quickly. It's easy to spot the members who are having trouble keeping up with the mindset. The team is transparent. So basically, the Agile mindset calls for team members to be transparent with their work, which includes failures, right? So when the team is struggling, they struggle together. When there are wins, the wins are together. So, moving from Agile to Scrum, like I said earlier, Agile is a mindset and Scrum is basically a subset of Agile. So sometimes people use those words interchangeably. They think Agile is the same as Scrum, but that's not quite true. Scrum is one of the ways in which you can implement an Agile mindset. Scrum, in fact, is the most popular process frameworks for implementing Agile. It's an iterative software development model, which is used for managing complex software as well as product development. There are fixed length iterations called sprint. We'll talk about all of that. So just a little bit of background on Scrum. A person called Jeff Sutherland created this process in 1993, taking the word Scrum from an analogy, which was used in a 1986 study in the Harvard Business Review. And in that study, high-performing cross-functional teams are compared to the Scrum formation used by rugby teams. And hence this picture that you see on your screen, right? It's not a relay. It's more like a scrum, like a rugby team. Compared to Scrum, traditional project management is a relay race. So the original context for Scrum was manufacturing, but it was adapted as a model for software development. And even though Scrum is used commonly for software development, it can be used for the development of any kind of product. So few more basic things. It's a framework. I've used that word many times. So it's not a definitive technology. It's more like a container, a framework, which you can use, within which you can use many processes and techniques. It's not a standardized process where you follow a series of sequential steps to produce a product. Scrum is lightweight because it's a framework. It's not a body of techniques. It's easy to understand, but like I said, it's difficult to master. And having used it, I can tell you that part of the difficulty lies in the mental block that people have. It's so different from traditional project management, it's almost like a paradigm shift. Um, Scrum deals with complex adaptive problems, like I said earlier, and adaptability is a term that has a strong relationship with the agile way of working. But if you contrast it with the big design upfront model, such as waterfall, it's very different, right? So at the heart of it, there are these words that you see. It's iterative, incremental, and it does not use linear structured formats. So instead of in-depth planning at the beginning of the project, agile methodologies are open to changing requirements over time, and in fact, they encourage constant feedback from end users. The goal of each iteration is to produce working software. So in Scrum, you build incrementally, not all at once, because things can change. There are cross-functional teams that work on iterations of a product, and their work can be organized into what's called a backlog. So, basic principles of agile being used here, right? Highest priority given to satisfying customers. Changing requirements are a norm. They're welcome, even late in development. Delivering working software frequently, that's what they aim to do. And then business people, developers work together. So in Scrum, decisions are made based on observation and experimentation rather than, detailing work upfront, like I said, planning upfront. So, here's where the the 3 principles of Scrum enter the scene. So if you look at this, we are talking about transparency, adaptation, and inspection. Transparency implies giving visibility to significant aspects of the process to those people who are responsible for the outcome. So this is one of the advantages of Scrum, allowing visibility with regards to the progress of work and team. This means that when the team is achieving its goal, those responsible for doing it can be recognized, right? Then inspection. So Scrum artifacts, we'll talk about that in a second, must be frequently inspected, and progress towards the goal needs to be, looked at. Use of a common Scrum board to relay the current status of the project to everyone. That's something that's commonly done in Scrum. And lastly, if we talk about adaptation, again, one of those words that I hear or I say again and again, right? In the agile world, practitioners always embrace and adapt changes so that they are constantly improving. So adaptation means that they change what doesn't work or what could work better. It also means that you constantly run small experiments and keep what is working and change when things are not working, right? So to summarize, we can say that the outcomes of a project should give visibility to significant aspects of progress, timely checks of the progress, or working towards the sprint goal is important, and then adjusting the process as you move forward. So if you look at this process itself, right, this it's one simple diagram, but it explains a lot to you about Scrum. So it starts with what's called, the whole process of Scrum starts with what's called a product backlog, or a collection of user stories. So this, if some of you are familiar with predictive project management, they're called requirements. Scrum calls them a wish list of the functionality that you want to incorporate in your product. So the entire Scrum process works with one product backlog, right? And there is a role in Scrum called product owner. Some of you are familiar with it. It looks like the product owner is the person who's responsible and accountable for the product backlog throughout the entire process. So this product backlog, then you see it starting from left to right. Product backlog gets broken down to smaller chunks of work, and that work is released every 30 days, and that's called a sprint backlog. And estimating how much time each feature will take is done by the project team. And these estimates are done in terms of hours and days. So a work day is broken down into 8 hours, and an estimate or estimates are done based on 1, 2, 4, and 8 hours. Or you could do day estimates based on 2, 3, 5, and 10 days. And at the end of the sprint, you have what's called a potentially shippable product. What that means is, however long your sprint is, and a sprint can maximum be 30 days. Sprints can also be run for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Commonly, I know companies run sprints for 3 weeks. So at the end of that 2 week, 3 week, or 4 week period, you have a small portion of the product that is completely ready to be used. Okay, that's the idea of a potentially shippable product increment. It doesn't mean that they're releasing everything or going live with everything at the end of the 3 weeks. They may, because it's a ready product. But generally, what happens is they will pool together the small increments done over a period of, say, 2 sprints and 3 sprints, and then release it together. So accommodated within this process, as you can see on the side, are daily meetings. So every 24 hours, there is a meeting held. This is sort of the big picture. So this one was more specific, but if you look at this big picture, you will see everything. So again, go from left to right. Everything starts with a product owner coming up with a wish list so he's a proxy for users, comes up with user stories. So product backlog is made up of user stories, and I'll talk about that in a second. So a bunch of user stories go into a product backlog. From that product backlog, that is the wish list for the entire project or entire project, that's right. You come up with a sprint backlog. So let's say you have 100 user stories that you start with in the product backlog. Scrum teams divvy that up into, say, 5, 6, maybe less, maybe a little more sprints. And in each sprint, what they do is they pick certain user stories in the product backlog during the sprint planning meeting and create multiple sprints. So work happens in those sprints. And here on this diagram, you also see the 3 roles of Scrum. So there is the product owner, there is the Scrum master, and then there is a development team. And I'll talk about development team in a second. So what happens is the development team starts the sprint, and your sprint, like I said, could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, during which time they're meeting on a daily basis. And at the end of the sprint, there will be, a little tiny part of the product that is done. But then, other than meeting every 24 hours, teams also meet at the end of the sprint. So if the sprint is 3 weeks, at the end of 3 weeks, they meet once for, something called sprint review. And then they also have a sprint retrospective. So I will talk about these things in more detail. So, a lot of what I just talked about, I put the screen in tables for those people who understand tables better. Some people like pictures, some people like tables. So 3 roles in Scrum, you can see them here. And there are multiple ceremonies. So there is a sprint planning meeting that happens before sprint starts. There is a sprint review that happens after. There is a sprint retrospective that happens right after sprint review. And then on a daily basis, you have a 15-minute stand-up meeting. What they produce, the artifacts or the documentation that Scrum teams create, one of them is called product backlog. I talked about that, made up of user stories. And then something called sprint backlog, which is, taking the product backlog apart and putting it in different sprints. And then there is something called a burn down chart. And I'll show you a burn down chart and talk about it. So as far as the roles are concerned, there are really only 3 roles. You have to you can't automatically align these roles to predictive project management. So product owner in Scrum, this role is held by a person who holds the vision for the product. And then we have the Scrum Master. This is the person who helps the development team overcome any impediments. This is also the person who can act like a mentor for the team. This is the person who knows Scrum most. And then finally, we have the development team, and this is the team that builds the product. So in the role of the development team, we don't say tester, developer, we just say development team, as a whole. So the product owner is the person who defines the work that needs to be completed, and this person also prioritizes. Remember, the product backlog is put together by the product owner based on requirements of the users, but the person then also prioritizes or orders this list, right? It's really important that the development team understands, what it is that they are developing. Then you have the Scrum Master. This person is the protector of the team, makes sure that everyone has what they need, and people are able to focus on the work. If there is any misunderstanding of the process, this is the person who also clarifies the different things that happen in Scrum. And then the development team made up of all the different types of roles that go into development. So the analyst, the developer, the architect, the project, well, in this case, you don't have a project manager, but people who are, doing everything that is needed to get the product completed. That's the development team. Multiple ceremonies that I talked about already. You have the sprint planning meeting, the daily Scrum retrospective, as well as the review. So during the sprint, it's a time box of 2 to 4 weeks. Time box means it should not take longer than that time. Sprint planning is when it happens just before the sprint, when they talk about what is the goal of the sprint and what it is that they're trying to achieve. The daily stand-up, and the reason it's called the stand-up is because they actually stand around a table, sometimes maybe no table, for 15 minutes, not less, not more. Well, it can be less, but it can be more than 15 minutes, and talk about what it is that they're working on. They talk about if there are any impediments in their work. And then when the sprint is complete, you have something called a sprint review, during which they talk about the progress of the product that they are creating. And they have a sprint retrospective where they talk about their process. So the difference between review and retrospective is that the review is about the product and the retrospective is about the process. This is, I'm just depicting a product backlog here. They are both functional, non-functional user stories, and it's basically an ordered list of everything. So it's the features that you need to develop, during the development of the product. User stories. So your product backlog is made up of user stories, and this is the form in which user stories are written. They could literally be, fit on a 3x5 card. There are electronic forms of it, like the one that you see, but it's basically a simple requirement, which is in the form of, as a role, I want certain functionality so that, certain value, it brings a certain business value to the product. So this is one of the artifacts that I talked about earlier, which is a burn down chart. So you're basically plotting on a graph day by day, how much work is left in a sprint. So for example, if your initial estimate was for a sprint was 100 hours, after the first day of work, supposedly 8 hours, you would have 92 hours of work left, but this may or may not happen. So you have a gray line, which tells you what is the ideal burn down. And then you have the green line, which shows you how much work you are actually able to do. These are some Scrum certifications, the more popular ones. I'm actually a certified Scrum Master. I also have a SAFe certification. And I know that many people who get Scrum certifications also are PMP, project management professionals, which is the predictive project management certification. So that's all I have today. I know this is a short masterclass. I actually teach Scrum project management as well as predictive project management over a period of 14 weeks. Also, some of these classes can be 8 weeks. So I was trying to fit everything into this half hour that I have. All right, that's it. I'm done. Thank you so much, guys. Are there any questions at this point? I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Prof. Andrew. Really insightful presentation as well. I think at this point, we will hold on with questions. I also encourage members of our audience to post their questions as well to the Q&A section at the bottom of their screen whilst we hold on to questions, which we'll come back to a bit later. Now, there's one more poll that is coming up. We'll go on to the next presentation. Before then, there's one more poll that's coming up. And this particular poll is focused on areas of steady interest for master's degree for members of our audience. So it says, which specialized master's program are you keen to pursue? Which specialized master's program are you keen to pursue? First is MS in Applied Finance, MS in Applied Finance. Then there's MS in Business Analytics, MS in Finance, Master of Human Resource Management, MS in Information Systems Technology, MS in Interdisciplinary Business Studies, MS in International Business, then there's MS in Management, there's MS in Marketing, then there's finally MS in Project Management. So all these are on your screen. I'll urge members of our audience to select the one that they are interested in. Which specialized master's program are you keen to pursue? Starting from MS in Applied Finance all the way to MS in Project Management. I'll let this poll hang for a bit whilst you post your votes. I'll add 15 more seconds to it, 15 more seconds, and then we will proceed. 15 more seconds for everyone. MS in Applied Finance, Business Analytics, Finance, Human Resource Management, Information Systems Technology, Interdisciplinary Business Studies, International Business, Management, Marketing, and Project Management. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and gone. Good. So as you can see the results, a quarter of you want to study MS in Information Systems Technology. And the next highest group after that came from, and there's another quarter that wants to study the MS in Project Management. So we have IS and Project Management folks. More than half of our audience are interested in Information Systems Technology and Project Management. The closest after that is the group interested in Business Analytics, that's 14%. And then we have MS Finance and MS Market and MS Management, both with 9% each. We have a few Human Resource Management interest participants as well. Now, for our next session, and after that we can go to our Q&A, we'll have Megan Van Son from the George Washington School of Business. Now that you've chosen the programs of interest, Megan is going to tell you how it's going to be possible for you to join the George Washington University School of Business. Over to you, Megan.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining today from all over the world. It's really exciting to see people from so many different cities. My name is Megan Vanson, and I'm an Associate Director of Recruitment and Admissions here for our graduate programs at the GW School of Business. So I am just going to go ahead and share my screen right now for the presentation. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. As was mentioned, we do have various specialized master's programs as well as the MBA. And we are, of course, located in Washington, D.C., and we are named after the first president of the United States, George Washington, who you can see on the right-hand side. And a fun fact is that we are one of just a handful of universities in the United States that were established by a congressional charter. So GW was established by an act of Congress in 1821. So we are now well over 200 years old. So just to get started with the presentation here. All right, a little bit about where we are located. Of course, you know, we're in Washington, D.C. If you go to our website, you can actually get a virtual tour, virtualtour.gwu.edu. So here on the map, you can actually see the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and then GW is located in this area right here. It's called the Foggy Bottom area, and the School of Business is right around here as well. So you can see that we really are located in the heart of the U.S. Capitol, where business and policy intersect. So I encourage you to check out that fun little tour and see where we're located. A little bit about our rankings. The Financial Times has actually ranked our MS in International Business program #1 in the United States for international business and #2 in the world. And we are also particularly proud of the number of women who are in our global MBA program. We've been ranked #1 for percentage of women in the global MBA. Our MS in Finance program that I saw a good deal of people were interested in has been ranked #2 in the United States. And a couple other rankings that you can see here. The Economist has actually ranked us #2 for faculty quality, which we're also especially proud of. And a bit more about the programs that we offer. So we do have a global MBA, which is a 2-year full-time program. And then we also have an accelerated MBA. The accelerated MBA is for those who perhaps have 10+ years of career experience and are looking to go back to school and upskill. And it is offered, it actually is open to international students, and classes take place on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Both the Global MBA and the Accelerated MBA also have a STEM designated track: science, tech, engineering, and math. So as you may know, with non-STEM programs, when you graduate, you can work in the US for up to 1 year. But with a STEM designated program, you can work in the US for up to 3 years. So there is a non-STEM and a STEM track for both of those degrees. For our specialized master's programs, which you just did the poll about, they are all listed there. And the ones that have a little asterisk next to them are our STEM designated programs. So I think the two that people were most interested in business analytics, information systems technology, and project management, those are all STEM designated. I do want to make one thing clear about our accountancy program. We have a general accountancy track, which is not STEM designated. And then we have a STEM designated track, which is the Master of Accountancy with a major in accounting analytics. So if you're interested in accountancy, you want to make sure that you're applying to the track that you want. But yes, a lot of diversity here. anything from tourism to sport management to business analytics. So we definitely have something for everyone. We also have over 20 graduate certificates. And an advantage of our programs is that the graduate certificates are 12 credits. So if you are doing a program, for example, our MS in Management program, where you get 12 or more elective credits, you can actually use your elective credits to take the classes that will give you a graduate certificate. So you would graduate with your master's or your MBA, in addition to the graduate certificate. And again, for highlights about the GW School of Business and our different programs, some things that set us apart. Of course, I've mentioned our world-class faculty. And of course, you got to listen to a wonderful lecture this morning from one of our world-class faculty members, Dr. Anjou. Our innovative curriculum. We place a big emphasis on teamwork, project-based learning, and an international focus in everything that we do. We also try to make sure that our students are learning about the most advanced technology and analytics in whatever it is that they might be studying. So our Master of Science in Marketing, for example, there's a strong focus on marketing analytics. We want to make sure that students are getting up-to-date skills and training. And then experiential learning. We actually have just for the School of Business, we have a global and experiential education office that runs short-term and semester-long study abroad programs, as well as our consulting abroad program for our global MBA students. We have a career center that is dedicated solely to GWSB students. We have an extensive and involved alumni network, and we have various different types of clubs and organizations and networking events so that you can get a chance to interact with other students, learn outside of your classwork, and attend events where you can brush up on your networking skills and perhaps meet those in the industries you're interested in already to develop mentoring relationships. As I mentioned before, we have a plethora of graduate certificates and various elective options. So if your degree allows you to take a certain number of elective credits, you have a wide variety of things you can choose from. And you can, of course, be strategic about your electives and do those that will gain you a graduate certificate. You can also take up to 6 credits outside of the GW School of Business. So, for example, you could take a class in another school in GW, and if you're with the approval of your academic advisor, use those credits for your degree here. We do also have joint and dual degrees. So, for example, it's possible to do a dual degree with an MBA and an MS in tourism, hospitality, and event management, or an MBA and a Master of Human Resource Management. And as I mentioned, our global and domestic study away programs. So here at the School of Business, we have the Fowler Career Center, which is dedicated solely to working with our School of Business students. They want to make sure that they get to know each student and that each student is prepared and positioned to pursue their career of choice. So they strongly encourage that you make an appointment with one of their career counselors early on in your academic journey here at GW, so that you can meet with them, they can get to know you, know what you're interested in, and help you develop a plan for your internship or your job search, connect you with alumni, other contacts they might have who are working in that industry, and assist you with your interviewing skills, your resume writing, your cover letter writing, etc. So they really are here to help you develop a career action plan and support you through that job search journey. And this is just a sample of institutions where our students have phoned up after graduation and are working. An advantage to us being in the Washington, D.C. area is, of course, this is the center of the U.S. government. So there's a lot of different government agencies. There are also a lot of different contracting companies, private companies who have contracts with the government, and just a plethora of other private companies as well, due to the dynamic nature of this area. And of course, we have a lot of non-governmental organizations and international organizations in the area, such as the World Bank. So you can see some examples on the screen. Capital One is actually headquartered in Tysons, Virginia, not too far outside of DC. Amazon has, within the last couple of years, established a large presence in the area, a lot of consulting companies. All of the big four accounting firms are also in the area. And if you're interested in sports and our sports management program, we of course have a lot of sports teams. So just a sample of some opportunities. And I've mentioned our alumni networks. GW has active alumni networks in all of the locations on the screen, pretty much everywhere in the world except for Antarctica. So wherever you land after graduation, whether it's somewhere in the US or somewhere overseas, you can definitely connect with GW alumni in that area. All right, so a little bit about how to apply to our programs. If you are an international student, you would, of course, need to complete our online application. And then in the application, you would upload copies of your resume, your transcript, and your statement of purpose. And then you would also need to enter in the name and the email address of at least one person who can provide a letter of recommendation for you. So online application, resume, transcript, statement of purpose, one recommender. For international applicants who do not have a degree from the US, UK, Ireland, Anglophone Canada, Australia, New Zealand, or several other countries, for example, Ghana, Nigeria, we do waive the English proficiency test requirement for. But if you don't fall into one of those categories, you will likely need to submit an English test score. We accept TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, and Pearson Test of English. The test needs to be current as of 2 years. And the scores that you see on the screen are our optimal scores. If you have between a 90 to a 99 in TOEFL, a 6 or 6.5 in IELTS, or 110 or 115 in Duolingo, you can still be admitted, but it would likely be admission with the condition that you take an English class in your first semester. Also, if you have a transcript from an institution that is not in the United States, you will need to provide a transcript evaluation for that. The transcript evaluation is a document that will equate all of your course marks to the US grading system with a final US GPA. We accept an evaluation from any company that is a member of the National Association of Credential Evaluation Services. So you may have heard of WES, ECE, Spantran, Joseph Silney. We accept from any of those. And I do want to clarify that it is okay to go ahead and submit your application before you have your transcript evaluation or your English proficiency test score. You can go ahead and submit. Your application will just be in a pending state. And then once those things are received, your application can then be marked complete and moved to review. There is an application fee of $80. However, because you are in the presentation today, you would not need to pay that. On the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a code, and you can use that code to submit your application. So when you come to the end of the application, just click on Save and Pay, and then select that you have a waiver code, and then enter that code. our operations team will see that it's there, and then they will manually submit your application without the payment. So just a little perk for today. So the next term that we are accepting applications for is fall 2023, which starts on August 24th. And the application deadline is May 1st. So as an international applicant, it's very important that you submit by the May 1st deadline if you're interested in starting in fall. The majority of our programs also do offer spring admissions, and the spring term will start in January, mid-January. Our global MBA and our business analytics do not offer spring admits, but most other programs do. And of course, funding your education is always a very important aspect of the process. For our MBA, or global MBA, we have a set tuition cost of $125,000. For our master's programs, our specialized masters are mostly 30 to 33 credits. So the complete tuition cost for a master's would range anywhere from about $59,000 to $70,000 US dollars for the full program. Scholarships are available. These are merit-based scholarships, and there's nothing special that you need to do to be considered for a scholarship. If it is decided that you will be admitted, at that time, it's also decided if you'll be admitted with any scholarship funding. If you are, it will state that in your letter of admission, and our scholarships are always given as a percentage. So for example, if you get a 20% scholarship in your letter of admission, that means that each semester that you're registered for, 20% of your tuition for that semester will be covered by the scholarship. I do get a lot of inquiries about assistantships, research or teaching assistantships. They are not something that would be offered as part of your admission package like the scholarships. Assistantships are generally posted just before the start of the semester, and incoming students are welcome to apply for any open positions that they feel qualified for. However, it's not something that's guaranteed, and it's not something that you would be able to apply for until just before the start of the semester. All right, so that concludes sort of the basic overview of GW School of Business and of our graduate programs. You can see the business@gwu.edu. That's our general email address at the bottom of the screen. So feel free to send an email with any questions that you have, and it will be appropriately directed. But yes, thank you for joining, and we hope that some of you are inspired to apply by May 1st to hopefully start a program in the fall.
Thank you very much, Megan. This is really much appreciated, very insightful, covers a lot that we need to know about JW. There are two career-related questions that I would love for Prof. Andrew to tackle before we bring the session to a close. The first one is from Yamini. Yamini says, hi, I would like to know if someone has to shift from consulting to, if someone has to or needs to shift from consulting to become a Scrum Master, where would they start? And there's a similarly related question from Emmanuel, who says, please, I'm working with a construction firm. Can I apply Scrum Master in construction project management, development of building products?
So one of the things I would say to anyone who wants to join the field is I would highly encourage them to do the certification. So I showed a list of certifications on the screen earlier. One of them is called the Scrum Master Professional, I think. Or you can actually, will they have the PowerPoint slides? Because I'm wondering if you're able to share with them those certifications. Jojo, this is a question for you. Do we share the slides with them?
Yes, we'll share the slides with them.
Okay,
Yes, we'll
okay.
share the
Then
slides.
they will be able to see the list of certifications. I think for anyone who wants to be a Scrum Master, I would encourage them to start from there. And there are higher level certifications also, but I think if you have that certification, you can sort of at least, get your foot in the door.
Great, awesome. Now, there's one more career question from Aria. Aria says, thank you. And she's asking, can you please advise what would be better for someone looking to build a career in project management? A master's in project management or a PMP certification?
It's a hard one. I teach IS in the School of Business. If you ask me this again and again, I'll say join IS. So there are different ways of doing it, right? There are people who, I have seen my staff, people who worked with me, for me. These were developers who worked for a few years, and then they went and got their certification, PMP, the certification, and then they became project managers. But these were people who were already working in the field, right? And so they had project management or they had software development experience. If you are a person who has just finished your bachelor's degree and you're looking to do a master's, or you're looking to get into project management, I think it would be okay in that case to do a master's in project management. So either works. It depends on where you're at in your career.
Okay, and I'm mindful of the fact that you have to leave very soon, Professor, but I'm throwing this to both yourself and to Megan. Obedala says he's interested in the MS in project management and is wondering about the background requirements because he's not an engineer. As far as he's concerned, he's not an engineer and is wondering if that's an issue in trying to get onto this program, in the MS in project management. Megan, will you take that?
Sure. Yeah, it's certainly not a requirement to be an engineer in order to be considered for the project management program.
Yeah, I would say the same.
Awesome.
You can be a project manager in so many different fields. I also,
Sure.
One of the examples I give of project management is people who are producing films. A movie is a perfect example of a project. It's a very complex, very fun project, but it's a project. So you could be literally from construction to IS to film to engineering. So you don't have to be a certain type of professional to do project management, I would think.
So thank you very much, Professor Andrew. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
For a while. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
doing
everyone,
this.
for joining. This was fun. And good luck to everyone. And, who knows, I will be seeing some of you in the fall. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care, Professor Andrew. So I'll go over to Megan. Megan, there are a couple more questions that you could help with. So is asking, Porhit is asking, I graduate in 2024. Will the application fee ever work if I apply for next year?
Yeah, that's fine. You can hold on to that waiver code and still use it to apply for next year. That's not a problem.
Okay, and your fee, so Abdulaziz is asking if GW is tied up with Empower or Prodigy for funding.
Yes, we are very familiar with both Empower and with Prodigy. These are international student loan companies. They are very familiar with GW and with our programs, and we have certainly had many international students receive loans from both of those companies.
Okay, and I think we answered one question about graduate research assistant positions as well, which you highlighted in your session. Now, Albin George has an interesting situation. So a person who already has completed an MS in project management and has experience in IT field, what would be the best positions to start applying for?
you're inquiring about what would be the best jobs to start applying for?
Okay, so I think this will have more been a question to Andrew. However, Emmanuel Kutin Mensa, Emmanuel says, I'm yet to complete my first degree. Is there any opportunity to apply for the GW Masters?
Yes. So if you, we do have many students who apply straight from undergrad. So for example, if you are in your final year of undergraduate studies right now, you're going to be graduating this summer. Yes, you could certainly go ahead and apply for an MS degree or for the fall semester.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a question from Yofi. I'm not sure if you want to cover. Yofi is asking, which are the top companies that recruit GW graduates for Scrum Master roles?
I cannot speak specifically to which companies are recruiting more for Scrum Masters. I will say that in the DC area, there are a lot of different companies that work in IT project management. So you may have heard of Deloitte. Deloitte actually has a very strong relationship with our Career Center here, and they have, in the past year had several on-campus information sessions and recruiting sessions.
Absolutely. So, Megan, with all your experience and all you presented today, do you have any advice for candidates who are interested in GW and are looking towards applying as well? Any final advice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say first of all, if you are interested in starting in the fall, get your application in as soon as possible. And I also would advise that you spend time on your personal statement. That is one of the required things to upload in the application, in addition to the resume and the transcript. Statement of purpose should be about a page to a page and a half long. And we really want to see that it is carefully written and well crafted, well structured, good grammar, vocabulary. And we want to see that you have really reflected upon what it is that you want to do and why you feel that this particular graduate program can help you get to where you want to be in the future. And we want to see as well why you're particularly interested in GW and what the aspects are about the program here that make it an attractive option for you.
Thank you so much, Megan. And thank you to all of you who joined us from all across the world, from Accra, Ghana, where I am, stretching across Nigeria into Asia. Megan, thank you so much for joining us from Washington, DC. I believe it's been an insightful session, and we're looking forward to some applications from this group and this session coming through to GW. You also have taken note of the contacts that Megan shared in her presentation. The presentation will be shared with you as well. So for those of you who are not able to keep that in record, you will receive a copy of the presentation to enable you to do that and stay in touch with the George Washington University School of Business. Thank you to everyone, and do have a good evening, a good afternoon for those of you in my part of the world, and a good morning for those of you in Washington, DC. Thank you very much, and see you some other time.